I'd like to welcome everyone this evening to the April 15th regular board meeting here at the Garfield Board Meeting Room. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public comment during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Chambers, would you please call roll when you're ready?
Mr. Nichols?
Here.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Here.
Ms. Pritchard?
Here.
Ms. Smoyer?
Here.
Mr. West?
Here.
Thank you.
I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes from the March 18th special meeting and the March 18th regular meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve those meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols and Mrs. Smoyer. Any questions, comments, anybody? Hearing none. Mr. Chambers, when you're ready.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Ms. Smoyer?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Thank you.
I would now entertain a motion for the approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any questions, comments, additions, anybody? Hearing none. Mr. Chambers?
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Ms. Smoyer?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Thank you.
We are now on to informational and discussion items. Mr. Sable.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome on this nice fall, spring day outside. Winter, right. I think it was 70 yesterday. Yep. I don't want to hear that. This evening, I'm excited to welcome our Helping Hands preschool and like to invite Principal Mix up to the front. I've really been looking forward to this presentation because I've been so impressed with the work that's been going on at the preschool level with deeper learning and deeper learning initiatives.
All right. Good evening. Thank you for having us. I'm Heather Mix. I'm the principal at Helping Hands Preschool, and I'm really excited to be here with you guys tonight to share the work that we've been doing in the preschool with deeper learning. So a little bit about our journey. Our journey to implementing project-based learning in preschool began about 2 years ago. We, as a preschool team, started talking about what deeper learning looked like in preschool and how we could implement that within our curriculum, the assessments and the standards that we have to follow. So the curriculum that we follow naturally allows for students and that student-centered learning as it leans towards really an open-ended learning experiences, and it allows for us to meet our standards for preschool, but we really wanted to get moving to the next level. So over these last 2 years, the preschool teachers and the paraprofessionals have participated in program-wide professional development for with the Department of Instruction and our state support team, and we have completed 25 hours of professional development through a book study, in-person trainings. We've had collaboration with both the Department of Instruction and the state support team coming in. We've had classroom visits, and the goal that we had was that everybody attempts to implement a project this school year. So in preschool, project-based learning is solely formed from the children's interests. So the staff interact with the kids and observe during play and conversations to begin determining what the students are interested in. And then they provide these various learning opportunities to see where the students are gravitating towards. So once they have an idea of where the students are heading, they begin facilitating an investigation with their students. And so since these projects are so student-driven, a project can last anywhere between a couple weeks to a couple of months. And it could also take a turn in a direction that the staff wasn't anticipating. So our students have been very hard at work this year. And I have some pictures that I'm just gonna share of some of the projects that they have been engaged in. So Christmas at the beach, Light and Shadows, Pets and Vets, Pizza, a grocery store, Building and Construction, Santa's Workshop, Shaving Cream, Space, Families, and then I'm going to turn it over to 3 of our teachers. I have Miss Wendy Good, Miss Chelsea Mitchell, and Miss Becky Gibson, and they're going to share with you specific projects that have been taking place in their classrooms.
Hi, I'm Wendy Good, and I'm the busy bug teacher. And Heather had mentioned that sometimes it takes a turn that we don't expect. So that's what I'm going to talk about first. So in our classroom in the fall, we were doing fall investigations, and we were going on walks, we were collecting samples and all of these things. Well, they were having snack one day, and I was carrying in some very large pumpkins. And I was just trying to use my time wisely and get them over to the carpet for an activity for the next day. Well, when we finished snack and moved into circle time, they saw how, they were heavy. I got some really good ones in Amish country, and they wanted to see how heavy they were going to be. So I let them have a chance at it, see if they could lift them and those things. And a little girl sat down as we were doing our closing circle, and she goes, "Mrs. Good, I have a question." And I said, "Okay, what is it?" And she says, can a pumpkin squash a hot dog? And I thought, oh, okay, this is what they're talking about in our training. And I was like, well, I don't know. I've never tried that. Do you guys want to try that tomorrow? And so we quickly jotted down things that they wanted to squash and smash and with the pumpkins. So I quickly called my team after work and said, okay, guys, we're doing this. Who's got this at home? Who's got that? We brought everything together. And then this was the planning project. So that very next morning, so that one question happened right at the end of the morning session, and we talked it over with the afternoon session, and they wanted to join in. And so here's some of the vocabulary we used. We made a plan of all the things that we were doing, and then we had them vote on if they thought the pumpkin would smash it or not. And then we rigged up a pulley system in my classroom and then proceeded with the experiment. So you can see we tested predictions with food and non-food items. There's an apple, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Then this is ways that they were documenting on their own. They were sharing with their friends. We were talking about it at the smashing table. They were taking pictures. And then they also worked with our speech pathologist and charted all the results for the day. The surprise result, which I had no idea. I thought I lost it somewhere. I thought it flew and hit somebody. I thought it was on the floor. One of the non-food items a child selected was an acorn, and we couldn't find the acorn anywhere until I looked inside the pumpkin. The acorn had actually smashed the pumpkin. So that was a whole nother topic of conversation. And the answer to the original question was, yes, indeed, a large pumpkin can smash a hot dog. And there they are. She's showing Mrs. Mix how the hot dog got smashed. So here's some of the ways we analyze data in preschool. So they circled which of the predictions were correct, and then at the end we reflected on the day and I recorded their answers. This was one thing that really surprised me. I had received some of these preschool children-ready cameras, their digital cameras, and so we just started experimenting with them about 2 weeks before that. And these are some of the pictures that I ended up getting when I downloaded like 500,000 pictures that they took. But as you can see, it's really cool to see it from their viewpoint. We don't often get a chance to do that. We're often directing their learning. So this was really them taking ownership of their learning. And then this is how they documented results, all on their own. I had no idea. They were just taking pictures with their friends. And then these were some fun outtakes, people that were not on task at the time. And so I just thought those were fun to share. And additionally, in our classroom, we've done 2 more larger projects, about 4 to 5 week projects. One was a box and ship store. They were really interested in how boxes are delivered and how you ship packages. So we did, and then we also coordinated with the local UPS store, and he let me take a video of his store and all the things they have there. And then we just are finishing up our car wash one as well.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Mitchell. I teach the Busy Bees class. I'm an integrated classroom, and so my classroom has an 8-to-1 ratio for students to staff and a 50-50 ratio of students with special needs and students who are typically developing. So I can admit that I am kind of the resident skeptic. When they first came to us and they're like, you're gonna do everything based off of the kids' ideas, I was kind of like, how? So for me, what worked for me to get my feet wet first was at Christmas time. I had this old PVC frame that I had used quite a few years ago, pre-COVID, to build gingerbread houses with my students. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna try and like bring that back to life. So when we came back from Thanksgiving break, the students walked into the room and they saw the frame and they were like, what are we gonna do with that? I'm like, well, let's think. What are some things we talk about around the holidays? So, you know, we talked about Santa and we talked about Kwanzaa and we talked about Christmas trees. And I said, well, I'm thinking of something you can eat. And they're like, cookies? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, have any of you ever made a gingerbread house? So we turned it into a gingerbread house and they had great fun with it. I didn't know my friends liked to paint quite as much as they do. And I wasn't sure we were ever going to stop painting. But that was kind of how we got our feet wet. So after Christmas, we came back and I left the frame up for the house, but I took off the lights and the walls and they were like, well, what happened? I'm like, well, you know, Christmas is over and you guys don't really seem as interested in gingerbread anymore, but what could we do with it next? What could we turn it into? And so I said, I want us to think about things that we all can talk about. And one of my friends in the morning, he's very motivated by food, and he goes, McDonald's! And all the kids were like, yes! And I was like, McDonald's? Like, you know, I don't have the same passion for McDonald's that they do. But we did our first webbing, and it was really neat for them to just start telling me, what do you know about McDonald's? What do you do at McDonald's? What's in McDonald's? So we made our web, and some of the things that were really neat is like, if you see on the left there, a kiddo said that they need a generator. And I was like, I would have never thought of a generator at McDonald's. And they were really big on Grimace, the purple guy and the Grimace shake, and they even knew that the milkshake machine doesn't work half the time. So that was another thing we talked about. So anyhow, they took the lead and they designed all of the things. So we went through, as a preschool teacher, you kind of become a hoarder, and I realized I had far too many food items that in our kitchen area, so we had to sort them, like what are foods you would actually see at McDonald's versus foods you would not. So we sorted all of that. And then we talked about how the outside of the McDonald's we see here in Medina have brick on the outside. So they're drawing their bricks, and a friend made the yellow M, and then they made the menus. And it's one of the first opportunities I had to really create like a word wall for my students. So for them to be able to look at a word wall and go, I can make that. It was really neat to see. So, and then you can see in the block area, I found some pictures of McDonald's from around the world and posted them in the block area so then they could build their own McDonald's or try to mimic McDonald's from around the world. So McDonald's started to end when they started playing, you know, cops and robbers in McDonald's and pouring milkshakes on each other's heads. I'm like, friends, I think McDonald's has, you know, come to an end. We got to find something else. So when they came back then the following week, the structure was gone. And that really threw them for a loop because our project so far had been based kind of around this physical structure. And I really wanted to push them to think about, what are some other things we can talk about? Where can we go from here? So it just so happens that I have, in the morning class, I have two students who have families overseas. So one travels to Jordan and another student travels to India. And one of our students, she was in India for almost 3 months, and they kept asking, when is she coming back? When is she coming back? So she finally came back, and we were all excited, and she talked about all the airplanes she was on, and the friend who goes to Jordan talked about all the airplanes he was on. And then friends started talking about the other places they've been. I had a student who went to Hawaii this year and didn't take me with, and a kiddo who went on a cruise, and all of these great things. And then it was kind of leading up to spring break with more travel plans. I'm like, what if we talk about traveling? And they all want to talk about the beach. Because I think that's what their frame of reference is for travel most of the time. So we started webbing again, and we even talked about what does it mean to travel. So most of them said it means going far away, which going far away for some of them is just to Kalahari, which is fine. And for some of them, like I said, it's overseas. So I didn't want to negate the idea that travel could be so many different things, that there are places we go, there are ways we get there. And why we do it. And it was neat to actually be able to talk about some of those things. So the blue letters are what we did initially, and then the kind of pinkish purple is what we've added to it. So what I had them do is I emailed all the families and I said, hey, this is what we want to talk about. And if you have some travel pictures you don't mind sharing, if you could send that in to us, we'd love it. So we now have this 3-inch D-ring binder that is full of nothing but their pictures from travels. But we got to learn what a rickshaw is. And I would have never thought to share with my students what a rickshaw is. And it was also really interesting, too, to have a moment with my students where we were looking at a book about travel, and it happened to have India and Jordan in it. And one of my little girls just asked innocently and naturally, why do the women wear things on their heads? And why don't the kids? And it was such a neat opportunity for me as an educator to be able to reach out to that student's family and say, you know what, I told my student, I don't have the answers for you, but you know what, I'm gonna find them for you. And his family was so open and honest with me and said, here's a great explanation for kids that I found for you, and to give me more explanation. So for these students to be able to bring things that most of us don't know anything about, especially at 3, 4, and 5 years old, to bring that to life was a really neat moment. So then I may have reached out to Tiffany Cosman and said, Tiffany, I need maps. I need, the old pull-down maps. You got to find me some. So they found me the old pull-down maps, which I may have cut apart. And so you can see we took a day and all we did was write our names down and put down all the places we've been. And then we also have the world map, and there aren't as many little flags and they're harder to see. But it was neat for them to see that, like, for 2 of our friends, you legitimately go across an ocean to get there. And it was also brought up the idea, too, that the earth is not flat. There's not a top and a bottom and an end. So then we got globes, which were really exciting, too. And then that also led to a conversation about, with the traveling, how do you get there? And a student asked, how does the pilot see where he's going? And I was like, oh, I have no idea. So again, I was honest, and I said, you know what? I don't have that answer for you, but I'm going to try to find it. So Mrs. Cosman was able to set me up with a pilot who just came yesterday. And as Mrs. Mix said, sometimes our projects take a turn. And we're still going to talk about the beach because we just started that. But in my afternoon class, their main questions for the pilot were, how do you fly through a hurricane and a tsunami and tornadoes? And it was like, oh, so apparently we want to talk about weather. But it was so neat for them to kind of get that real experience. And the pilot we had in was really, he just shared so much information, like things I didn't know, that, the windshield is heated to 150 degrees, so nothing can ever stick to it. So you don't have to worry about a snowstorm. But for the kids to realize, too, that this is something you could do one day. And he actually he got his license when he was 14. So for them to realize that some of them have brothers and sisters that are old enough to fly a plane was really engaging. And then we also had our destination day yesterday, where I encouraged them all to wear shirts or bring a souvenir from somewhere you've been so we could talk about their travels. And one friend wore his life jacket all day. And today we started our investigation into the beach. So we took a trip down to the library. We got all of the nonfiction books we could find, and they were so enthralled. It's something I've always encouraged parents of young children to do is get those nonfiction books. And they're interested, like they want to know, what do they eat? How do they move around? What is this thing? And so I don't have all the answers. So I spend a lot of time Googling things with the kids today. And so, yeah, so that's kind of where we are, is in our investigation phase. And Mrs. Mix is going to pass around 2 binders. One documents our gingerbread project, one documents our McDonald's project, and then there are the standards that we covered through the McDonald's project.
Hi, I'm Becky Gibson, and I am the Bear Cubs teacher. In my classroom, I'm in a co-teaching situation, so myself and Mrs. Alt are the teachers. When you guys came and visited in the fall, you were in our room to see the Light and Shadows project, which was really fun. And that one took us almost all the way up to Christmas, and then we did the Christmas at the beach. Obviously, beach is a theme through our whole preschool. And then in January, when we came back, we saw interest in building. So we started with the building and the construction. And one of my students asked, how can we put this Little Tykes car up so I can work on it? So I was like, oh, I never thought about that. So that gave us all these, we tried all these different objects. And then we used some shelving and created a mechanic's garage right there and had a scooter board where the kids could slide in and out. And so then that started into places in the community that we can go. So we had a car wash, and we dabbled in McDonald's a bit. And then the best thing is recording the kids' words, what they're saying. So my students that are just learning to speak are able to tell me things like, I fill up. And then other students are telling me that I want a gas and a Coke. So just these things that are asking or investigating more things that we need to look at as far as like a car needs a new engine. So how do we know those things? So that brought us to continuing this whole community piece. So we started with some simple machines, and grinding our dirt with the old-time grinders and coffee. Smelled amazing. And the kids really loved that. And then bringing in that writing piece. So we modeled the traffic light for them and then had them draw their own and create their own pictures with that. The one thing that I didn't realize in early childhood to this year, till this time with the investigations that we're doing, is how much kids can create with their drawings and how they can show the way that they see the world. And I really like to have the paper out there for them to just write their thoughts and ideas down on in picture form. So then, all of a sudden, we had some students in the gym wanting to do the teacher's hair. So, you know, preschool and hair, there's a fun topic. So we're like, how can we do a hair shop without anyone brushing their hair? So we bought these wonderful wigs, and we had goatees for the boys and mustaches, and they started their own hair shop. And then we were fortunate enough that one of our parents was a hairdresser. So she came in and taught our students about that job. And then we also had a doctor's office that eventually became a veterinarian's office as well. And as you can see, they're really good at fixing us up. And we had some real tools in there as far as like a blood pressure cuff, real stethoscopes, just using those types of things and materials. And then we used our wonderful school nurse, Nurse Trish. She did a whole lesson with them and showing them how we use those materials. So then finally, we're still in this community type of project. Right now we have a bank with an ATM machine. I got ID'd the other day. They said it wasn't my ID. We also have a smoothie shop, and also we're working on a fire station. So when we talk about length, this has been from January, and now we're into mid-April, and it just keeps changing and evolving, and the kids are still interested in it. So I do feel like one of our culminating events is going to happen in 2 weeks. We're going to have the fire department come and visit. So we're really excited about that, and then we'll just we're looking at weather right now, just kind of see where our next steps are going to go. And that's it. Thank you.
I must, excuse me, I must say that at the Portrait of Practice, I did get to see the preschool, and I very much enjoyed the space theme. It's something near and dear to my heart. And then I saw the Legos too. I think you guys use Legos, and again, that's very near and dear to me. But I think these are all great. This is really good because kids are sponges, and they pick up a lot more than what you realize if you just listen to them. And you know, you guys obviously are listening to them, and they are very insightful and intuitive. So the questions about why somebody wears a veil or stuff is very insightful and relevant. So thank you.
Yeah, pretty impressive that we're hearing about preschoolers directing their own learning, teachers taking hold of them directing their own learning, and then smashing a hot dog into lessons about gravity, force. I mean, these are high school physics lessons. And then on top of it, we're hearing about preschoolers analyzing data. So it's really impressive, the work that's going on with the deeper learning at the preschool, and I thank you all for coming this evening. I'm going to go a little bit out of order on the agenda and come back to the House's proposed budget. So I'm going to save the most exciting information towards the end. And I'm going to invite Ms. Busby up to talk about the upcoming graduation. Believe it or not, it's just a little over a month away. And this is a special graduation for us, the 150th commencement. So we've been working with our committee from the high school, Dr. Tadona, on trying to plan some special things for the upcoming graduation ceremony. I do want to mention that we are going to be doing the ceremony at the stadium outside once again, which we've received overwhelming positive feedback on holding it in our stadium. So we have fingers crossed for nice weather. We've been very fortunate the past several years.
So thank you, and just want to share just briefly some of the plans that we have as a committee to celebrate our class of 2025 and certainly our 150th commencement exercises. As you see on the display, is we've kind of come up with a special logo which incorporates some of the elements that already exist with the seal for the Medina High School. So this logo is going to appear on the program. We're also going to do a special, I don't call it a badge, ribbon for alumni to take when they come into the stadium, if they'd like to have one. We're also going to have some special graphics that are going to be on the electronic boards on the sides of the tent that kind of host that logo, and also some a look back in history of our high schools. At the end of the commencement, there's always opportunity for parents and grandparents to take photographs of the graduates, and we're also going to have a banner, which much like you see behind the board here, that's just going to have a special overlay that's going to recognize our alumni as well as our graduates with this special logo on it. So we really have quite a bit planned. For the graduates itself, we're going to do a special ticket. Normally we don't have tickets that we collect for graduation, but it's just kind of a keepsake for the families that will have that logo on it. And then we're also looking into, and not sure if this is going to be able to happen or not, but the logo, that's going to be something that we can add to the tassel. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can come up with that and make that happen. So graduation, as Mr. Sable mentioned, is going to be Saturday, May 24th at 11 at Ken Duke Stadium. So fingers crossed that we're going to have a great day for our class of 2025. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
As I know our entire board knows, we had an unfortunate incident with a travel bus for our girls lacrosse team during spring break in West Virginia. A lot of work has gone in to support our girls lacrosse team, work with our coaches, and make sure their needs are met in continuing with their season. We also owe quite a bit of appreciation for the support that we've received, not only in donations, which there's many of on the agenda tonight, but also the fire department and services that provided our students with support during and after the incident. And Dr. Kwolek worked closely with Dr. Tadona as well as Todd Hotke, our athletic director, in working through this whole situation. So she's going to share an update with the board.
Yeah, and I want to start just like Mr. Sable did to thank that Sissonville Volunteer Fire Department for their incredible work. There was also a gentleman who flagged the bus down. We weren't able to get his name, but in case he's watching this, we want to thank him as well. I want to also thank the coaches, Colleen and Carly, who they're just incredible calmness in a incredibly scary situation helped the girls tremendously. So I just want to allow or give the community an update. Again, public schools provide an amazing service for our students, and it isn't just a service of education, it's also mental health supports. And I think this was a great example of that. I had in my notes here, I wish the media had done a follow-up story, not just about the drama and the fire itself, but in the amazing support and resiliency of our students in the lacrosse community. So you'll see a number of donations on the agenda, not just from Ohio, but from as far away as Exeter for our lacrosse students, giving them the materials they need, the equipment to play. Because a lot of that was lost in the fire for the girls that were on that bus. So we're providing services, mental health supports for our student athletes and our coaches, follow-up supports just to screen for things like post-traumatic stress, but also insurance. So Mr. O'Call, our business department, athletic department have worked with the insurance companies to provide those families. Because again, the coaches and the girls lost not just equipment, but personal items as well. So again, I want to thank the Sissonville Volunteer Fire Department and just everyone for their amazing work with this. And just we're all very thankful that for things that could have ended a lot differently. So, and the girls are playing right now in Mentor. So they're out there on the field where they're the happiest. So thank you.
While Chris was just up here, I do want to recognize Dr. Kwolek. Just last week, and she might give me an evil eye for bringing this up, but just last week we had the opportunity on behalf of the Share Cluster to recognize Dr. Kwolek for receiving the Community Prevention Award. And that award is nominated to one individual per year, and it's for their service to the community as well as to a school district with mental health services, anti-drug campaigns. And Chris is truly a go-to for our district in terms of providing guidance within our buildings for services, not only for our kids, but I've seen firsthand Chris also work with staff members in helping to provide them with appropriate direction as they face challenges. And her work really extends beyond what happens in the schools, but also extends to the community. So that's a vital piece of that, is the amount of organizations she's involved with that help bring services into our district, but also provide support outside of the district in the community. So congratulations to her, and thank you for that service. I also want to take a moment to recognize Principal Brian Condit. He'll probably give me evil eye as well, because I think he didn't want me to know he even got this award. but Brian was nominated, I believe, by staff in his building and received the Administrator of the Year award through the Ohio Association of School Leadership. And I think that happened a month or two ago that he received that award. But I think it's a real testament to the work that he is leading over at Claggett and the appreciation that his staff has for the changes that are happening within that building in leading them towards deeper learning initiatives. I can tell you, walking through that building, the climate is just outstanding in terms of the positive energy of staff and students, and there's excitement. We talked about the Portrait to Practice, and I talked to several of his teachers that were there presenting that were excited about the work that they're doing in their classrooms. And a lot of that starts with the building leadership and working with staff to put those kinds of programs in place for students. So congratulations, Brian. And we'll come back to committee update. Well, let's do committee updates. I'll save the budget for last. So curriculum, Tina.
Good evening, everybody. Our curriculum committee met yesterday. We spent a lot of the time going over the House proposed budget that you are going to hear about in a couple minutes, so I won't steal Mr. Sable's thunder on that. And then we also we had a presentation from our high school principal, Dr. Tadona, and our counselor, Carrie Schreck. They talked about different ideas they had to help our students become career ready. And so those are ideas. They're in the very beginning stages right now, but these are things that we'll be sharing with you guys in the coming months. And then the last thing we did was kind of recap our Portrait to Practice Expo, which was last Thursday. We had about 50 teachers there attending and sharing their presentations. We had over 400 family members and community members attend. It was a really great night, full of positive energy. So it was a great experience. Yeah. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Facilities.
All right, I just have a couple things. I'm glad you got us in before your presentation. So I'm going to spend some money while we still haven't. I have a couple things I wanted to do. And the first one is something we've been working on for a really long time, and it's come to fruition. I'm really excited about it. And I got some people I want to thank. But I wanted to let you know that we got the Ohio EPA scrap tire grant. So, Gene, you can stop getting tires for me. I don't need those any longer. But I would like to thank Matt Wilson from Vasco that helped me with the project, along with Garrett Ripp from Liberty Tire, and that's where they're going to get the recycled material from. Maria Barnett from the Ohio EPA, along with her team, Cora Staller, Michael Kelly, Chet Cheney, and Nicole Lehman. And the group at the high school that helped me work on it that is very beneficial was Brittany Hartery, Mason Harper, Jordan Olson, and Rachel McCullough. So I appreciate their help and support. And we will be constructing the track with help from the Ohio EPA of $300,000. So real excited about that. Now, the roofing projects. We had the roofing bids come back on Friday, so we met with the consultant. Dave and I, of course, were out of town, so Aaron got the privilege of opening our bids this time. It's an exciting process, so glad you were able to do that. We are going to I'm presenting to you that Country Roofing, we'd like to award Country Roofing with the Ella Canavan project, and PRS with the Rec Center project. So is it appropriate if I ask if you have questions about that now? Because I know that you got this kind of last minute, and I'd like for you be able to answer, or I'd like to answer anything that you would ask.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Regarding the rec center, when I look at the schedule, it looks like the PRS bid is a little bit more than Sona Construction.
Yes. So when we got the bids in from Sona, they had a few disqualifying factors that should not have allowed them to bid on the project, and they bid anyway. They are not licensed to use the materials that we submitted in the bid, and we also require that a bidder conducts 90% of the work. So in any given project, they're going to run into something that they might not be qualified to do, so they have somebody else come in. The last time in Canevin on the flat roof, they brought another group in that did the welding of a ladder. They had to extend the ladder. So you have things like that we allow them to subcontract 10%. Well, Sona is like a project manager, so they don't do any of the work, and they contracted with another roofer then that roofer wasn't qualified to do the materials that we were presenting. So we would not have been able to get the warranty that we want, and that was not a gamble that I thought the school would be willing to take. We have used PRS for the last 3 summers and been extremely pleased with the work they do. So it'll be a win for the district.
Both country and PRS we've used, but PRS we've used before. Have we used country before?
We have not used country before, and remember, Ella Kenevin's an interesting roof because it's slope roof, it's shingles. So we had a bunch of different bidders on that slope roof. We have not used them. Greg Taylor, our consultant for the roofing project, has reached out to all of their people that recommended them, and they all checked out. He's comfortable with it. So we're comfortable to move forward with them.
Thank you.
The skylights from the rec center, though, you will see on there, and we don't know the state of them. They have to lift them to go roof up over the curbs. So we have on there cost to replace them. We're hoping we can do the work, reglaze them, and not have to replace them, but I didn't want any surprises for the board, so we put the full replacement cost on the quote so that you have it. But yeah, we're hoping that that's not an issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to say that's smart. I've had experience with skylights, and they can be very problematic because you just never know what you're going to get into. So that's smart. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and the rec center roof is a 50-50 split with the city, so I wanted to make sure we got that in there too. Thank you.
Yeah, just a couple things that I wanted to highlight in terms of what Ryan presented. The first of all is the grant's a big deal, and we often hear, especially when we're having to go and ask for additional funds, how what we do to try and offset the cost to the community, and applying and receiving grants like that is a prime example. And I think Ryan only got 1 paper cut, so they were successfully submitted. Dave, Finance.
Yes, good evening. The Finance Committee met 2 Thursdays ago. We welcomed 2 new members to the Finance Committee, and basically the rest of the committee time we spoke about House Bill 96 and the defunding of schools. So if you have any questions about it, talk to the members on the Finance Committee and they'll let you know how it goes. Thank you.
And last but not least, policy.
We met as well. We have over 40 policies that we reviewed, so we will be meeting again next month for to hopefully put those on for a first reading in May. And I think that's going to be the new norm for us. There were times in the past when we didn't meet every month, but I think we're going to have multiple policies each time. So this next batch will be a large batch of policies.
May I ask a follow-up question to Mr. Chambers about the Finance Committee?
Yes.
Did you find that the community members were educated about the legislation, or and do they have any thoughts or feelings about that, or feedback on their?
Mr. Sable and I tried to give as much information because House Bill 96 was just passed through the House, I believe, that morning. And so we tried to give as much information as we could at that point. The members of the committee were very supportive of schools, obviously. And I would think I could say they were appalled at how the legislation is trying to, or legislators are trying to push us through is good for public school districts.
And to remind everyone, House Bill 96 is the House's version of the budget, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Well, just 1 month ago, I was up here in the same spot presenting on the governor's proposed budget. The governor's proposed budget included the Fair School Funding Plan, which has been placed for a number of years, which is a nonpartisan joint plan developed with our legislators as well as public school leaders and our state education organizations. He was looking at implementing a reduction in funding to school districts, which I shared last month would have been approximately a $1.5 million reduction for Medina City schools in the 2 years of that budget plan. Since then, as Dave mentioned, and we didn't have a lot of information yet when we had the Finance Committee, but the budget has, governor's recommendation has completely been blown out of the water and revamped by the House, especially when you look at the funding of schools. And so today I'm here to share exactly how the House's budget would impact Medina City schools and really schools across the state of Ohio by sharing the key budget changes that they have included in the House plan, get into some detail, which was really a lot of work to figure out the forecasts and the actual impacts on Medina City schools, because the budget, although it seems simple on the surface, is actually quite complicated when you start looking at the prolonged forecast, and also provide information just like we did the last time in terms of how our staff and community can reach out to advocate for our schools and fair and appropriate funding for public schools in Ohio. So as I had already mentioned, the first piece is that the Fair School funding formula was completely eliminated. So right now in Ohio, with the House's recommendation, there is not a funding formula at all for school districts. What legislators are referring to this time period is a bridge. I can only gather to believe that what they mean by a bridge is to eventually have some sort of a funding formula. However, that is not included in the next two budgets. Not having a formula, what does that do to school districts? It creates instability, widening disparities, and more uncertainty when looking at a long-term forecast. Because there's not a clear formula that outlines how funding will work for public schools. With this plan, the legislators promote and talk about two specific things. And the first part is that they are giving an increase to public schools across the state of Ohio. The other piece that they really advertise is the property tax decrease that the school funding plan they are recommending will put into place. So those are two key things that I'm going to talk about today. It's important to know, though, that the increase that we would be receiving here at Medina City Schools is about $100,000. So on a $100 million budget, $100,000 is not very much. That's one teacher, maybe one teacher. And that doesn't offset the $13 million in local revenue we would be losing. So when you hear that this funding plan that is put out by the House gives more money to public schools and lowers property taxes, there's a lot more to that statement, because we're losing local property taxes. It doesn't offset, the increase does not offset that loss, and we're actually looking at quite a dire situation, which I'm going to show you here. Another big challenge when you talk about funding overall, and we've talked about vouchers before, but even with the increase that's being recommended by the House, it's about a $250 million increase for public schools. So again, for us here in Medina, that equates to about $100,000. Now compare that to the $500 million increase that is in the House's budget for voucher and private schools. And then you start looking at the ratios, and I mentioned this last month, that 90% of students in Ohio go to public schools. So 90% of all students across the state are looking at half the dollar amount of increase compared to the 10% of students that go to private schools. And I'm not even getting into the conversation about whether or how vouchers or private schools should be funded. I'm simply mentioning the disparity in the amount of money that is being budgeted at the state level to support students across Ohio. And I would even argue that this is a plan that doesn't support students across Ohio. Another challenge, and I did mention this last month, but Ohio currently ranks 35th in the state in terms of state funding for public schools. Out of 50 states, I think that's embarrassingly low, especially for the high standards that we have for our students here in Ohio. And this proposed plan coming out of the House doesn't do anything to change that disparity. The big piece of the proposed budget is a cap on carryover spending. There is a feeling in Columbus that Ohio's schools have too much money on hand. There's been a common comparison in Columbus to districts' carryover funds being the same as rainy day funds at the state level. There are major differences, though. Any carryover funds that we have as a public school district are budgeted money. So if you look at an extended forecast, and I'm going to share ours with you, that budgeted carryover money allows us to go a longer length of time without putting a levy on the ballot. And it also allows us to spread our spending over a prolonged period of time, which is really important for school districts. And I use this example with another group that I talked to in the past week. But if you look at your own personal budget, and I'm going to use myself as an example, I owe income tax to RETA, the Regional Income Tax Service, on a yearly basis. Medina City Schools does not withhold that amount from employees' paychecks in our district. So I need to work my income and my budget so I can pay my quarterly taxes because they're not withheld. I actually just paid it yesterday because tomorrow's tax day. But an even bigger challenge that school districts have is I can try and balance that budget, and I would advise anybody, this isn't a good way to do it, but I know it happens, by using credit. I can put debt on credit cards. School districts aren't permitted to do that. We're not allowed to use credit. It actually blew my mind yesterday that when I submitted my taxes, I could even charge it to a credit card. So they will even allow you to pay your taxes through debt. But school districts can't do that. We have to have a balanced budget. We cannot go into a deficit, and we cannot utilize credit in order to overcome that. So if we are at a 30% cap for carryover, that really handicaps the district in regards to having a long-term outlook, have levies on the ballot less often, and make sure that there is cash on hand through that carryover in order to pay our future expenses. So I mentioned that one of the big sells of this concept is the tax relief. And the way I've heard it explained over and over from Columbus is that this could be the largest property tax relief that has ever been provided in Ohio's history. I would question and argue, is this really a tax relief program? And the reality is, I'm going to share the numbers with you, is it is a one-year tax relief. So yes, it is a tax relief, but it's not a tax relief that will stay into place. The difficult situation we are in as school districts is we recognize and we know and we are experiencing ourselves the dire need for property tax relief that much of is due to the drastically increasing property taxes. The concern is for the largest tax relief, property tax relief in the state's history, is completely on the backs of public schools. So the sole responsibility in providing this tax relief, and property taxes don't just go to public schools, is from schools providing that tax relief. This provides no support from the state in providing this tax relief. And I've talked about property tax caps or carryover taxes and how our carryover is viewed similar to rainy day funds. The difference with rainy day funds, and this is what we have at the state level with our legislators, is that rainy day funds are truly rainy day funds. That's why they're called that. So it's money that's sitting there. Our state currently is at the maximum amount that they're allowed to have by law in rainy days funds, which is over $6 billion. So it's very challenging to hear as a school district that's trying to manage a 5-year forecast that the complete backs of the reduction is put on us. What is this going to do to the district? It's going to cause a spiraling effect. It's going to cause an increase in levy reliance. So what we are forecasting is we will need to go on the ballot sooner, and we will need to go on the ballot more often in order to maintain that 30% and not have the additional carryover that we would typically have. This is really going to create challenges in terms of transparency with the community as well as providing information, simply because of our hard to estimate and calculate financial situation from year to year. So here's where I'm going to change screens. So I want to emphasize in the numbers that I'm going to share now that these are estimations that we worked on. So these are not exact figures, but this provides, to the best of our knowledge, a really good example of the situation we would be facing with the implementation of the House's plan. So what's up top here, displayed here, is the Fair School Funding Formula. So it's the funding system that we are currently under as a school district. This includes the 7.5 mil levy that our community just passed in November. If you look at the financial outlook at the beginning of this forecast in 24 through approximately 27, you do see our total cash balance increasing. That increase in cash balance is part of a normal levy cycle. When a district passes a levy, typically you have a buildup of your cash balances, and you can see by 27, 28, those cash balances start going down due to deficit spending. We had told the community that when we went out for this levy, that it was likely going to last us 5 or 6 years. So the benchmark that we normally use to let us know, hey, it's about time to go on a ballot in order to have sufficient funds, is about a 20% carryover. So you look at what's proposed by the House, a 30%, that's not far off from where districts typically recognize that they need to go onto the ballot. Now, the bottom part of this chart is the plan proposed by the House. So we would be facing, and this assumes implementation in fiscal year 26, so all of the figures are based off of fiscal year 25 expenditures. So how does the state determine what your cap is? And how they do that is based off of your expenditures from the prior year. So your carryover is permitted to be 30% of your previous year's expenditures. So if you have higher expenditures as a district, your 30% is going to be a higher number. If you have lower expenditures, it's going to be a lower number. If you have more than the 30%, then they have authorized, or there's some debate under whether this is even legal, but they have authorized that local, county budget commissions must reduce the amount of millage that you're collecting to get you to a district to the 30%. So for Medina City Schools, that means in year one of this plan, we would lose over $13 million. That is almost our entire levy that our community just passed in November. That's a difficult pill to swallow, because when we talked to the community about the importance of the levy, we said it's the community's choice. What kind of programming and expectations do you have for Medina City Schools? If we pass the levy, these are the programs that will be in place. If we don't pass, it would have meant $8 million in reductions and a different look and feel to our district. So to me, what this is saying right here is state legislators are saying it's no longer our community's choice or decision. You passed a 7.5 mil levy in November, you're going to lose 6.5 mils of that levy because we feel your carryover to take you the long stretch is too much. Well, what's the result of losing that 13 mil? The result is having a decreased revenue the following year. Because if you lose millage, you can no longer collect on that millage. So immediately in year two, you can see that with our projected expenditures, we'd be 11.3, almost $11.4 million in deficit spending. So right now, within the language in the proposed legislation, it says that we will be given back millage to bring us back up to the 30%. And in my reading of that legislation, I'm a little hesitant with what it exactly says, because the language says that budget commissions must remove millage to get you to 30%, and it says they may give millage back to bring you back up to the 30% if you fall below it. So to me, that language says it's the decision and in the hands of the county budget commission. I have been told, though, that the legislator's intent is that that millage is rewarded back. So hopefully, if anything changes, that's more accurately reflected in the language. So we dropped to such a deficit in fiscal year 27 that we would get almost all of that $13 million back in millage. So that's why I said it is not a prolonged tax break. It is a one-year tax break. So I think there's a lot of information that's being distributed in regards to what this tax break actually would or would not do. The challenge, though, for us is because there was such a large reduction in fiscal year 27 in our collection, it is almost impossible and a challenge for us to make up that money that was lost in that collection year. So you start looking down the chart in the very next year in fiscal year 28, and we still have about $600,000 that we can get back because we're still not able to make that 30%. We're below the 30%, even getting that additional $600,000 back. So what does that mean for us as a district? What do we have to do in order to get back up to the 30%? Because we no longer have any voted millage to give back. We're now in a situation of either making reductions or we're in the situation of putting a levy on the ballot. So in fiscal year 27, we're looking at a levy on a ballot with this 30% cap. With the fair school funding, we were out to about 2030. Still getting our 7.5 mils eventually back. Again, the issue is the hit we take in our decrease in revenue as the result of that millage being pulled away for 1 year. We are now in a situation where we are either making annual reductions or having annual levies on the ballot. Let's talk about reductions a moment. Reductions are something historically we've recently made quite a lot of reductions as a school district. That is a way to manage a school district's budget. This system complicates reductions even further, and here's why. And I talked earlier about the potential spiraling effect that this could have. If you start making reductions, your 30% starts going down. So you have less money that the state is even going to allow you to have as a carryover as you make reductions. The only way to offset that again is to pass a levy. I am very concerned in our community about having annual levies on the ballot and having the expectation of our community to pass those levies. I think that's a huge ask, not just for our community, but for any community. So with these reductions, the decrease in what the 30% is, I foresee our forecast very quickly in our district heading towards state minimums. What do state minimums look like? Elimination of extracurricular programming or making it so it's self-sufficient, self-funded. Decrease in or even elimination of, if state minimum, of extra courses at the high school, the middle school, things like Project Lead the Way, things that aren't mandated, things like art classes, PE. We would have a very different educational structure in Ohio with this going into place. So to say that the proposed budget, and I heard this quote from a legislator, how could you be upset with this plan? We're offering the largest property tax decreases in our state's history, and we're giving schools more money. I challenge you, though, is that really the case? is this a property tax decrease? It is a 1 year. You look beyond fiscal year 27, let's say our community does say, we demand we continue to have the programming we have in place because it's great programming and we want our kids to continue to receive these services. So we actually get a levy pass 27 to 28. Well, what just happened is our taxpayers are now paying more for the same. So this proposed historic tax break for many communities that expect their schools to continue to have the programming in place is actually going to end up being a tax increase. And for our community, it's within 2 to 3 years that they're going to see that. So if you talk about cost effectiveness in funding our local schools, it's right up here, where we're able to budget out and be responsible in how we're using our funds to provide the kind of programming that our community expects and needs. So what can we do about this? We're already advocating as a school district in Columbus, working with our organizations. We are also collaborating as a county. We've already had a meeting with all of our county superintendents and treasurers. We're going to continue those efforts to work together on a county level because a big difference with this proposed plan that's currently in place is it impacts every single public school across the state. That is different than the past, because with past formulas, even if we didn't like them, all schools were impacted a little differently. Even with the governor's proposed reduction, we were seeing a reduction. There were districts that weren't seeing any reduction. There were districts that may have been seeing a slight increase. That's not the case with this plan. Now, there might be a difference with how soon districts fall into that deficit spending, but eventually all districts in Ohio, I believe, will be on a similar path in terms of what their local funding is going to look like. So there's still time. It was voted through the House. It's going to the Senate. It's important to mention that in terms of reaching out, which is what I'm asking you to do, that the Congress people are currently on recess and will be until after the holiday weekend. So that outreach after the upcoming holiday weekend would be appropriate. I encourage people, if emails are all you're able to do, email. But we really encourage people to make phone calls and send paper letters because those are the things, tangible things that gets our legislators' attention. The other piece is really focusing on the Senate and our governor. Our area senator is Mark Romachek. We've also included the Senate Finance Committee, which will be the group that's first reviewing this. It's perfectly appropriate to reach out to legislators beyond our local representatives. The other big point of contact is the governor. The governor does have veto powers with the budget, and he has the authority to line item veto parts of this budget. And making sure that Governor DeWine is aware of the impact that this has on our children and our community because he does ultimately have authority. So I mentioned last time this budget needs to be completed by June 30th, which seems far off right now, especially as we talk about fall-like days, but it's going to be here before we know it. So the outreach is extremely important. Any questions from the board at this time?
I have kind of one question. I know the answer and you kind of hit on it. But I know one of the big things that, good old social media, everybody's talking about is, oh, why doesn't, group of treasurers or group of superintendents go to Columbus or invite representatives to come and hang out with them? Can you touch on that a little bit for community members?
I can. Several pieces to that. First of all, we're having the very conversation you just brought up about groups of treasurers and superintendents reaching out. We just had that conversation last Friday or the Friday before. We are regularly reaching out and talking with legislators. That's why I'm down in Columbus, which lately has felt like almost every week. That's what I'm doing in Columbus. I'm working with other superintendents and our alliance organization to outreach to legislators and make sure that they're aware of how legislation impacts us and provide recommendations on legislation that would be in the better interest of public students in Ohio. So we do have those efforts in place.
For sure. I just wanted to make sure that it's out there, and every time we talk about this stuff, the information's still being spread out there that nobody is doing anything going from Medina City Schools to Columbus or contacting representatives. And I know that's not true, but I feel like more people need to know and understand that. And then the second thing is more kind of in line with your call to action. Obviously, everybody call your representatives, call the people in the budgeting committee or finance committee, and reach out to people. But I understand we're frustrated, we're angry, taking more money away, creating more expensive, just basic public facilities that are funded by taxes. But be kind. You can be very factual, straightforward. And if you want, go ahead, be a little sassy about it, but don't call up, don't yell and scream. And 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get to talk to the representative. It's going to be a staffer that potentially may be unpaid as a college intern that's a poli-sci major that, they really don't want to get screamed at. So a little bit of courtesy and a little bit of facts and knowledge can go a lot longer than just getting out all that anger on somebody that maybe isn't directly involved with that. So
yeah, and just following up on what you're saying, Joe, is letting those legislators know how it's going to impact your child or your school district. Our legislators work with a lot of different avenues, and I think it's a job where it's very difficult to be a specialist in any one way. So for us to educate them on the impacts of the decisions or potential decisions that they're making is extremely important as part of those communications. And then the second piece will be the communicating in ways we can collaborate to make adjustments to some of these things, like I said, to better serve Ohio's public students. And that piece we're working on right now with our local organizations. I'll actually be in Columbus next week, and I'm hoping I'll be coming back with more information on steps to take to try and have resolutions to this challenge.
Thank you for the presentation. We do appreciate the time that you've been spending down in Columbus and to bring this attention to our legislators, working with the Alliance for High Quality Education. What I want to make sure the community members know as well is not only is it a decrease in state funding, but they're really trying to take away the will of the voters. Our community approved a levy in November because they said these are the things we want, and we want to keep funding our schools so we can have these services, and they're basically saying no. And that's infuriating. And I think that's something that we need to make sure the community members understand and share with the representatives.
You're absolutely right. And actually just this afternoon, I had some conversation with the Alliance leadership to share some of the things we're going to be talking about and presenting tonight. And they said 2 key things that's important for our community to understand in our situation is, number one, the will of the people almost the entire levy that our community just passed this school year will be pulled away in 1 year. And then the reality is, if we want to keep programming like it is in our district, our community is going to have to pass another levy and pay more in property taxes than they would have if this option was never even implemented.
I just want to jump on that too. It's not like it's irresponsible spending. This is the state saying, hey, we are taking this money away. It's not, we all went on a vacation to Hawaii or something in an all-inclusive resort. No, this is the state going, we're taking it away. It's not irresponsible spending, because we made that promise to the community that we are going to be conscious of our spending just in general, but especially after this levy, and that we are going to take care of those dollars. And those dollars that come into the community for the education, we're going to get the most out of each and every dollar.
Well, yeah, the bottom line is the state wants to, people are upset about rising property taxes, which we understand and can totally relate to. But our voters approved that. It's local dollars that the state is saying, no, you don't get to use that now how you want it. And then they can say, well, we gave you a property tax break on our backs instead of using the rainy day fund or another way to take, to ease that burden. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I asked you this before, Aaron. When we get the updates, from OSBA, I always see like the same people going to speak before the different committees. I asked you, why don't you go down and speak? Because, I think Medina is kind of a unique situation. Most of the people that are going down there are either the teeny-weeny little schools or the real big school systems that are definitely going to be impacted. Medina is, I think, very different in the fact that we just passed this levy, and it's a good point that all the money that the people just agreed to give us is going to be taken away in the first year. And the other thing is, if I see the Parma superintendent on the TV one more time, knowing he's going to another school district and whining about everything, we need to get a TV station out here and, try to get some attention on what's going to happen to Medina, because Parma, I don't know, but, and no offense to anybody at Parma, but, he already has, flooded that boat. But Medina is really going to be hurt seriously when we lose all that money. And you're right. And then our property taxes are going to go up higher than they are right now. So I would recommend that you go down and speak sometime. This would be a great presentation for them to see. And I also would include Mina's presentation on special needs. I don't think anybody down in Columbus understands the cost of special needs, what it costs our school district or any school district. They're totally oblivious. So anyways, thanks.
I have one last question. Is this presentation then will be available on our website? How will people be able to access this?
Yes, we're actually in the process of preparing a communication for all of our staff and employees. I anticipate that'll go out in the next day or so. This presentation will be available on our website. And in addition, we're going to have a link to the presentation that I just did. And I'm guessing Amy's going to work with her people to condense that so they don't have to scroll through the whole board meeting.
Thank you very much. It's a very stark, almost depressing if it comes to pass, so hopefully it doesn't. But I'm not an accountant, but I'm a numbers guy, and I was sitting here doing some yellow pad production sketch numbers. If you look at a $500 million increase for private schools, and given the number of students that were in private schools last year, that's almost $3,000 a student. That's how it averages out. $250 million on 1.8 million public school students is $140. Now, Medina, from your own numbers, would get a lot less than but that's an average. And it's just makes my blood boil that much money. If you took the now $1.5 billion that they're proposing and divided that out amongst all the public school students, we might not have even had to go on the ballot for a levy, because it would have been roughly in that ballpark, or maybe the levy would have been a lot smaller than what it is. So these are the number of students are straight off Ohio's Department of Education website, and the numbers are very publicly available for the number of dollars, and it's just absolutely striking to me the amount of money that we're being scrimped and save and is being given away. So it's more of a statement, but I'm not off that. I'm probably off a little bit, but I'm not off that much. So I would encourage all of the public to look at this and really think long and hard, because maybe they do get a tax break for a year, but then it's going to come right back.
Right, and potentially cost more. And I'm just going to end on a quote that I heard from one of my colleagues this week, and they said their dad used to say this, but is the fruit worth juicing? So you see that tax decrease in that year, and it's hard not to pick that fruit. But really taking a look at that fruit and down the road, and is that juice rotten? And I think we got rotten juice here. So thank you.
I will add one more number, but $1.5 billion divided out, just being even conservative, is almost $8,000 per student going to private schools. And I know we get a hell of a lot less than that from the state. A lot less. And I think it's just atrocious. So, thank you. Mr. Chambers, informational items.
Okay, I got to follow that, huh? Here we go. We ended March with a $50 million balance. This is $1.3 million below the end of February. The reason is because we did not receive much money in March. We received most of our monies in February itself from property taxes. If you go on to, let's see, I should be there. If you go on to the next page, total revenue is $87 million. This is basically 92% of what's on our 5-year forecast right now. Of that 87, we have 63 in property tax. This is 18.3% above last year at this time, and that's because last year at this time, we did not have the 7.5 mil levy that was passed in November. We started receiving the first half of those property taxes, which coincidentally is around $7.5 million. The state foundation, it's at $13.7 million. This is 2.9% above last year. And it also includes the $400,000 in casino revenue. Going on to our expenditures are at $67.2 million. This is 72% of our anticipated expenditures for the current year based on the 5-year forecast. So we're actually below where we anticipate, because we would be at around 75% at that point. Our personnel services are $41 million. We finally went above last year for the first time in the entire fiscal year. Finally went above last year's personnel at 1.7%. But if you notice, it's only 2.5% above 2 years ago, which was the last time we had 26 pays. And I'm going to refer back to that because we cut a number of individuals through resignations and retirements to begin this year. And you could see that with our benefits. Even though our benefits went up, the premium went up 12% this past year, our benefits are down 3.7% overall year over year. And then we get into our other expenditures at $10 million, and this too is down from last year. Get into our investments. Now, what Aaron was talking about here with House Bill 96, that is going to eat in the investments going forward because we will not be investing a lot. We'll be looking at investments that last anywhere between 3 months and probably 9 months, 10 months, 11 months. So we will not have long-term investments. So I think commercial paper might be a good investment because that's a 9-month deal. But our investments will not bring in what they're bringing in right now. And if you look at what they're bringing in right now, we're almost at $1.6 million. This is roughly $300,000 below what a mill brings in for the school district. So in investment purposes, we are offsetting 1 mil worth of taxpayer money on a yearly basis. And talking about our true days cash, this is how our cash works. And if you were listening to what Aaron was talking about, the levy cycle, this is a mini look at the levy cycle as we go through the year. If you look at the red 2023, you could see our levy cycle. We get our monies in July, we spend down through December and January. We get our monies back again in January, February, and spend down. And as you notice, between the red, the green, and the yellow bars from July through January, you'll notice that we're spending down more and more each year. That's because of the levy cycle. Now, the reason that February is gone up is because that's where our new levy starts hitting. But you notice that the February high is not as high as where we were 2 years ago in 2023. And that's because we've spent down into an additional year here. If we would have passed in November of 23, the start of the new levy cycle would be about where the 2023 year is, and we would be spending down more. What else do I want to talk about this? Let's see. You can see where we are right now in March. We are just a little bit below February in 2025. What we're looking at is and this is another area that I pointed out to Mr. Sable, is June is not our low end of the year. If the County Budget Commission looks at June, they'll be looking at a higher ending balance than where our actual lowest balance is on the year. Our actual lowest balance is in December, January. So what will happen with House Bill 96 is they're looking at a high balance or a mid-high balance and going to be basing the 25% off that balance as opposed to where our lowest need is on each year. And then finally, our website. Please visit our website. Our website has all our financial information on it. Our website will have the presentation that Mr. Sable just gave. Our website will have our new 5-year forecast, which is due next month. And it will also have all the financials from this past year on it. Any questions?
Mr. Chambers, do you mind going back to the prior slide, the True Days Cash, and can you just explain to the community what exactly that means?
True Days Cash?
Yes, please.
That's taking our balance and dividing it by 365 days in the year. So what we're looking at here, let's go to January. We're looking at, we have a True Days Cash below 100 days, meaning that if the state stops the money, we stop receiving any money, the school district could last for 100 days, 100 calendar days, not 100 school days. There's a big difference where we would be at around 85 school days, so we're not even through a half a year. So,
thank you.
yes. Anything else? Thank you.
All right. We are at the board communication point, and I'm going to start with Mrs. Parkhurst tonight. But you can come back if you need to.
May I just pass?
All right, you pass.
Thank you.
How about Mrs. Smoyer?
And come back.
Okay,
Thank
that's
you.
fine.
Thank you.
Mrs. Smoyer.
All right. Let's get this thing to work. All right, so my board communication, as I left off last month, I said wish me well because I was going on a trip to Disney with the band. Survived that, but just wanted to say that the band did an awesome job. They were picked out of many, many, many other bands that apply to march at Disney, and we were selected. Medina was. We got to take a week to go down to Orlando. And the second day that we were there, they got to march at Magic Kingdom. The kids enjoyed it immensely. It was a little drastic change in weather that they are not used to marching in their wool band uniforms, but they survived. It was in the 80s that day. It was beautiful, but they had a great time. And then they got to, as Mr. Locker says, enjoy the fruits of their labor because they have worked so hard and they do such a great job. This is his way of thanking them so that they can go out and have a great time. They were there in the parks from 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. almost every night. And as I said, they got worn out, which was great. So did I. But we all survived. We had a great time. And we, on the buses, went through West Virginia the day before that lacrosse team did, and I cannot imagine what they went through. So I am so glad everybody is okay. But I know that they hit the brakes quite a bit in West Virginia. Otherwise, I wanted to mention that several of our Medina Color Guard students are involved in what's called Rangerettes Winter Guard, and they earned first place in the state of Ohio on several of their teams. So all 4 of the Rangerettes Winter Guard teams got first place, which was fantastic. That was the weekend after we got back from Disney and still recovering from very little sleep. Then I attended Jazzmatazz. I feel like I do only band, and I do a lot with them, but they do a lot. Jazzmatazz was a fantastic event. I know several of the board members were there and actually was asked, what did you do to bring all these board members here? I don't know, but you guys, he appreciated everybody from the board coming. They transformed the school into a jazz festival. It was fantastic. They had food, they had everything, and it brought in a lot of fundraising support for our award-winning band. Excuse me. Also went to the Portrait to Practice at Claggett. It was awesome. I love going to each and every one of the tables and asking the kids, okay, do a presentation for me. What did you guys do? And these kids, their faces just light up and they are so excited about what they are doing. So it's fantastic. I feel like I don't have enough time to go to each and every one of them because I don't want to leave them mid conversation, but they do such a great job. And the teachers also, they are so passionate. You can just see how excited they are and how what their passion is on that. And I did love our preschool presentation today. It just shows this deeper learning, which I am truly embracing. Also went over to Eliza Northrup Elementary this past week, and the 5th graders did a capstone project. And they worked with community leaders with real world problems that they had. And these 5th graders collaborated together in their groups and they worked together to help these leaders in their community work on these problems that they have. And some were just like thinking out of the box that, you know, you sit there and you think one way, but these kids, even like the preschoolers were doing, you think out of the box. And sometimes, as I was told, some of these people do use what these 5th graders are telling them to do. It's amazing. I think Miss Doty mentioned that. Did your husband use that?
No, we have a parent that's a rep for Sora, which is like online books, and so she implemented a suggestion from the 5th graders to add emojis to the searches.
Oh, They added emojis to the searches. That's cool. So see, this is something that, these fifth graders just think out of the box that we don't even think about. And then last but not least, went and saw Curtains, the musical this past weekend. It was a great show. There were so many details to it that I would love to see it again and again, just to pick out all the different things that I'm sure that I missed. But the cast did a great job, and so did the directors and all the background people too. So it is a whole school thing. So thank you.
Mr. Nichols, we'll go with you next.
I was just making sure she's not ready yet. Okay. All right. Yeah. The one thing that I want to point out that I was able to do was the portrait to practice, like we had mentioned, and I'm sure everybody else is going to mention too. And yeah, I mean it's such a cool thing. I'm glad that we implemented it. What was it? Last year was the first year. But it's just really a awesome display of what the kids are doing in their classrooms, what the teachers are teaching the kids and how they're teaching the kids, and the full circle culmination of their education throughout the year up until this point. And it's always awesome. And one of the things I know Mrs. Parkhurst has heard me say in curriculum is, sometimes we see the kids and we think, okay, they're kids. They kind of can't do X or can't do Y or don't have enough direction for these type of things. And portrait to practice is a perfect example of if you just give the kids a little bit of a push and let them go crazy, they can make it work for themselves. They can learn better than almost anybody is able to force them to learn, right? If you give them a little bit of run. I know I would have loved to have, a little bit of student-led learning when I was in school. So it's nice to see that we've gotten to this point. We now are letting the kids do their own thing and learn in their own way. And incredible results.
Miss Pritchard.
Yeah, before I forget, the foundation is having the Run for Fun May 9th. It starts at 7 o'clock. Make sure you pre-register. We've had a great streak at the Career Center. We had every student of the month but one, and the March student of the month was Arrow Maynard, who's a senior in cybersecurity and digital forensics. The Medina students of the month for April were Alexa Perfidi and Chase Martineau. Senior art students participated in the Art League Senior Scholarship Show. Medina had 5 participants. Jay Maluski received the Grace Zay Award of $1,000, and Addison Dressel was 3rd place and received $850. The ESC honors 1 student from each school, and Medina's 1 student was Varun Rodriguez, and his inspiration was his math teacher and cross-country coach, Brian Dudick. I was able to catch part of the girls' lacrosse game last Tuesday with their new sticks. It was pretty chilly, and they did kill their opponent. I saw the boys' volleyball team play that same night where they defeated Menor, and then I came back and watched them play St. Ed's the next night. The JV played 3 great sets, and they lost all their games by 2 points. And then the varsity played, and they also lost their 3 games just by 2 points. So it was really fun to watch them. And a new rule that I didn't realize, that you can actually kick the ball to get it up in the air now. So that was interesting. And a couple of great kicks that got it up there. Jasmine Taz, I was there, and it was a lot of fun. They did a lot of hard work. Band boosters and the directors had a long day, but it was certainly worth it. School musical, I went Friday night, which was opening night, and I think the musical was great, but I think the fun thing was that the kids were so excited to perform it, and you could just tell that in their performances. Portrait in Practice on Thursday was very nice, and the crowd, nice crowd. And Mrs. Cassidy has now agreed never to do it again during Masters Week, and so that will be very good. Friday at Northrop, the one capstone project that I really liked is how they're going to, the kids came up with ideas on how to renovate Jump Park because it needs to be redone, and they had some great ideas. I also want to mention that Canavan was a 5-star school. Just 10% of the schools in Ohio were 5-star schools. And Garfield, the good old building here, also received a Momentum Award this past year from going from here to here this past year. So Mrs. McGinney is here, and to all the teachers that were part of that, I just want to congratulate them. And this is the time of year that kids are looking for jobs or playing sports during the summer. And if you need a physical, you can go to the free clinic at the hospital. Just call for an appointment, and everything is free. So, or for fall sports. So don't think you have to pay for anything. Just call the free clinic. Thank you.
Mrs. Parkhurst?
Thank you. I needed a moment to after Mr. Sable's presentation. So we, as is evident from everyone that's talked up here, we have great things going on in this district. We have great students, we have great staff, we have great teachers. There's a lot of exciting things happening, and we want to maintain that. So I, again, am going to ask our community members, our parents, our staff, everyone, a call to action to call your legislators. We share lots of great things on our website. Mrs. Busby always puts things out on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Kids First is here tonight, and they put information out as well. Please, when you see that information, share it with your friends and family, because they may not be getting that information or following those pages. So please, I encourage everyone to share out that information with everyone that they know. We have some humble administrators. I know that they don't do things for kudos, they do it for the students and for the district, but I do think it is important to recognize Dr. Kwolek for her award, as well as Mr. Condit for his. Administrator of the year for the entire state of Ohio seems like a pretty big deal. So, but again, I know you're humble, and it's not about that, it's about the kids. I do appreciate that. And lastly, I just want to also thank Mr. O'Call for the EPA grant. Looking into that, I know Mrs. Cassidy has always looked for grants wherever she can. Mrs. Bazicka, she'll see tonight, there's contracts on our agenda tonight. She tries to get multiple years when she can. Everyone's always trying to get more for less. And I, for one, appreciate all of those efforts to do what's best for our kids while being fiscally responsible. Thank you.
All right, I will try to keep my comments short. Couple things. I did go to Curtains as well. Having grown up with a father who was a band director and a choral director, I am floored by the level of skill that the students have, both singing, acting, choreography, and everything, and they absolutely love being up there. So when these come up, community, go. It's totally worth it. Excuse me. I also went to on Saturday, I went to the 36th annual Tom Fasco Medina Relays. That's a big track meet. I was there for about an hour. It was cold, and then I left. But there were lots of volunteers out there, and I saw a lot of people volunteering that didn't have kids in high school anymore. This is the level of commitment that our former parents and other in our district have. I was approached by Mr. Olson and Mr. Dudak and Mr. Stepsis, and they are excited for the new track. And, to put that EPA grant in perspective, that's roughly half the cost of the new track, give or take. But that's a huge savings to community. So thank you to all of our staff that went out there and really fought for that. And so that's a win for this district. Went to portrait to practice. I actually got to spend the whole time this year, and I told Mrs. Cassidy as much. Last year I only got about a half an hour because of work commitments, but this year I got to spend the whole hour and a half. So I got to see a lot more, and it's nice to see, some of these things look maybe simple to us adults, but these are skills that you start early and you start building on for all of these things up here on the wall, which when they leave school and they go out into the workforce, these are the things that employers are looking for. So you start early. Some highlights for me was, and if I got this wrong, I apologize, but I believe Claggett has an American Chestnut Society thing. Now, for those that don't know, the American chestnut was the redwood of the East. They were all killed off by a fungus back in the early 1900s, and the American Chestnut Society is trying to bring them back, and Claggett has like the only middle school club in the country, and they're doing stuff with that. So I thought that was just fabulous. I was also particularly impressed with the art. Some of the high school artists had their works there, and these were drawings, and it looked like I was looking at a picture that was taken with a camera. That's how good our students are. Writing, same thing. Just the passion from all of the different groups and the kids that were there. One was a elementary school, and they were playing with little programmable robots that would run around on the floor, these little balls. And all of those things, I'm looking at this going, yeah, that's what I do every day, but I'm at a much larger and much more expensive robots, but they're learning it in elementary school and middle school. And finally, somebody I want to just mention, I see him at almost every event I attend, is Officer McLaren. He's our high school resource officer, and he is like at almost every event that I see, even on the weekends, and his partner Nessie is usually with him. Now, when the students see him, they never want to go see Officer McLaren. They want to go see Nessie, who's our, I believe it's a firearms and explosion detection dog, German short-haired pointer, and that was provided by a grant that the district wrote up and then got awarded. So this is I talked to him a little bit, and he said he's getting calls from all kinds of resource officers now, how we did it, and they want to do similar things in the schools. So Medina's leading the way in lots of different things. So, and that is all I have. Does anybody have anything else? Nope. Okay, we are now at the portion of the meeting for public comment, and it looks like I have a couple here. I have a little something to read, and then we'll get started. Community members wishing to address the board are asked to abide by the following guidelines. Attendees shall register their intention to comment in the public portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting. After those that have registered have spoken, if time allows, the board president will ask for public comment from all other attendees. Please state your name, address, and affiliation. Please keep your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. And we are going to start with Tilda Salhini, and if I butchered the name, I severely apologize. But Tilda?
Hi, good evening. Hello, my name is Tilda Silalahi, and I am an exchange student from Indonesia. Through the AFS program, I'm a KLES student, and I'm sponsored by the U.S. Department of State, and I'm currently living with my host parents, Bob and Cami Amory, and I'm currently studying at Medina High School as a junior. I would like to thank Medina City School for this huge opportunity, and I'm also participating in many fun activities in MHS like Encore, Theater, Key Club, and OCOM. I enjoy all of my classes that I'm taking, and I like socializing with the students and the teachers. It has been a very exciting experience. Again, thank you for this special year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up we have Sandra Baylor. Baylor, I'm sorry.
Good evening. My name is Sandra Baylor. I live at 1100 Jefferson Street here in Medina. I am a retired Medina high school teacher in 2013. While I was here, I taught the high school, civics and history, and at the high school and middle school in special education. I hate to bring up more difficulties that we're all facing, but I will come back and we can discuss this more in the future. But I wondered, with my background, what the impact of the federal and state movements, signatures, proclamations on diversity, equity, and inclusion is going to have on Medina City Schools. I wondered, as a history teacher, would there be chapters I had to skip? As a special education teacher, would there be times that my students would not be included? And a variety of other things. I'm certainly not asking for you to answer those questions tonight, but I hope that there's a plan to consider how that's going to impact curriculum and policy and activities of the school district, just like the wonderful young lady who was just here, and a way to communicate that to the staff. So I hope that that could be addressed at some point. Unless you have the answer right now, I'll be glad to come back.
No, and I'd be happy to sit down with you and have a conversation if you want to schedule something.
I'm not so much interested in a personal understanding, but more of a corporate understanding, and also, of course, in terms of advocacy. Because while we're calling about funding, I think that perhaps there's some issues there we should be talking to our representatives about as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? No? Okay. Action items G are for the treasurer.
Yes, if it please the board, action item number 1, it's recommended that the Board of Education approve the March 2025 Treasurer's Financial Report. Item number 2, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following supplemental to the 24-25 permanent appropriations. We have the Adams Grant. This is addition to what was appropriated earlier this year. The Adams Grant is for drug testing at the high school, and they appropriated $5,000. They need more money to finish off the year. We have speech and debate. This is also addition, and the reason for this is they had a number of students who had qualified for a upcoming debate, and they need to have more monies for hotels and travel. The class of 2023 and class of 2024, this is to clear out those funds. We want to zero them out, and that also goes into item number 3 here. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the following fund-to-fund transfers. If you notice that all of these are coming out of the previous classes, they're going into the principal fund. The last one is going into the class of 21. That's because the class of 21's in the negative. They overspent at the time. So we're zeroing them all out. And thanks to Karen Platts over at the high school, who's monitoring all of these funds here. So
I will entertain a motion on treasurer action items G1, 2, and 3.
I'll give you a motion for G1 through 3.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols and Ms. Pritchard. Are there any questions? Anybody? Comments? Hearing none. Mr. Chambers, when you're ready.
yes, Mr. Nichols.
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Ms. Smoyer.
Aye.
Mr. West.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next up are superintendent action items H.
Number one, it is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following donations. I want to point out the fairly large donation of $3,500 from Mr. Funk for the donation of 14 golf bags to replace the current bags. And then the second one is the whole list of lacrosse donations. I do want to point out that while we're seeing quite a bit of generosity here within our own community, there's generosity and donations really coming from a vast array of locations, even outside of our community. And as Dr. Qualican mentioned, we're extremely appreciative of that. Number two, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreements. The first service agreement is with the Career Center for the Project Lead the Way courses that are offered within the district. This is an annual contract that we present in order to share the cost of being able to offer those programs. We then have two special education contracts. Again, these are both contracts or companies we've contracted with in the past. And these are all for services per student's individual education plan. Number three, as Mr. O'Cole had presented, is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the following resolution for district roofing projects. And last but not least, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following personnel recommendations pending the completion and submission of all appropriate and required paperwork per our Director of Human Resources, Mr. Shields. There are multiple resignations for purposes of retirement, which is quite normal this time of year. I think this is a good time to announce that next month in May we're going to be recognizing all of our retirees here at the board meeting. The past couple of years we've been doing this, and principals have been presenting their retirees that are in attendance, and I anticipate we will have some sort of social prior to the board meeting where we can actually talk to and meet some of those retirees. Thank you.
I would entertain a motion to accept superintendent action items H.
I'll make a motion to approve those items.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Thank you to both of you. I'm drawing a blank. Mr. Chambers, if you please.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Ms. Smoyer.
Aye.
Mr. Nichols.
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard.
Aye.
Mr. West.
Yes.
Thank you.
Parkhurst and Smoyer, just to help you out.
It's been a long day. All right, we are now at the point to go to executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, or compensation of a public employee or official, the preparation for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment. I would entertain a motion to move to executive session.
I'll make such
Oh, go ahead.
motion.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments? Mr. Chambers, if you please.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard.
Aye.
Mr. Nichols.
Aye.
Ms. Smoyer.
Aye.
Mr. West.
Yes.
Thank you.
We will not be taking any action when we come out of executive. Thank you very much, everybody.